You go
Oh.
online or like virtual?
So looking at the local school district. Okay.
I could actually have a plan of action before it goes online and not like have a day's notice so the teachers don't have to scramble and the students don't get stressed out about where they're gonna live.
So just a contingency plan, a plan B from the get-go. Yeah. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
And there is a large percentage of students that test positive,
Okay.
so there's rapid growth.
Okay. So the positivity rate among students as campus-wide?
Mhm.
Okay. 'Cause we do have one that's class-wise. campus-wide.
The summer online stuff.
Okay.
I'm out.
Out, 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 out.
I'm out.
If they, like, first college, if they ran out of places for people in dorms to quarantine, because I know they're doing a certain dorm where students are quarantining, but if they run out of places, then it's kind of.
Like quarantine capacity, quarantine space, yeah. Anyone?
I put like the number of students like that don't show up to class. So like attendance wise.
Okay. So we do have that one up there. Perfect. So yeah, we're good there. Anyone? Mhm. Any more, Stephanie?
I think mine are the rest of it.
So we've got everybody's thoughts and ideas up here. So when or how should schools decide to go virtual? What we're going to do, Susie's going to kind of lead us point by point. And we're going to, whoever's kind of initially gave that idea, you're now going to give us a little bit more information about why you said that. And this is kind of our opportunity to discuss. So to ask those clarifying questions. If we need to change the wording a little bit, we can. If we need to add to it, we can. But this is kind of our discussion and clarifying phase. So, and we started with you, and the first one was George. So tell us a little bit more why you said that.
I said that because I learn when I'm in class, and I don't learn as much when I'm online. I'll figure that out the hard way. And if I'm paying good money to be here to participate in class, then if I have to pay that money, then they should have to let me in my class.
Okay. So do you think it's more about student choice? That like if students are saying they want it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think it's more about choice than so much money. It's whoever, it's kind of that consumer model of I'm paying the bills, so I get to kind of tell you what we're doing. Okay.
Invested model. I just put like, since there's like it's like a 99.5% chance that you don't get it, like why are we so worried about it?
Okay. Any questions, clarification for that?
Isn't that the mortality rate, not the rate?
Yeah, that's yeah. So it's a mortality rate, not the infection rate.
The infection rate's still like pretty close to the same.
No, like a lot of people can get it, you're just asymptomatic, they're not gonna get the symptoms. So they're looking at the like, you're gonna recover from it. There's more people recovering than like the deaths.
And it's hard to know that, I would say, it's hard to know what the, what's it called when you get, whatever, that you're gonna get sick with it because we have been putting in measures to slow the spread of it. So unless we just had done nothing, it'd be really hard to know the true actual infection rate. That's kind of something we have to consider with any of those data points.
I worked at Lowe's all through the whole thing, like from March all the way until now, and they didn't make us start wearing masks until July. So it's like, why didn't they start making us wear masks in March? Because I could have been infected easily. We didn't have
Yeah.
any protection. So what's the point wearing it now if I didn't back then?
So just kind of that idea of, so is it more about less than just facts about the, so like I think of facts about the virus as far as like what it does when it affects people, who's going to be high risk. This is more just about really considering maybe what has been the infection rates, like over a period of time in the area kind of thing. Maybe more of looking what that is and, okay.
Maybe that like how the middle school and high school are doing like the yellow plan and like all of that, more like that part.
Just like what's kind of that weekly average? Yeah. Okay. Direct threats to students?
I say once we're seeing physical evidence that we're being harmed by it,
Okay.
What about like people that aren't students, like the professors and stuff?
well, okay, students and faculty then. People on campus.
Okay, so you would want to
Yeah.
include, okay.
Yeah, it's not just,
Direct threat to students and university personnel. That covers everybody. And as far as threat, are you thinking people with symptoms, or like kind of how would you define threat?
something worse than 103-degree fever.
Okay, so,
Like hospitalization kind of that, or are you just like, where, on the ventilator, a week on the ventilator, not coming off the ventilator, pronounced dead, like, oh my
We'll cross
God.
that bridge when we get to it.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
all right. What's our next one?
Effects on education.
I just think, well, especially in the spring when we went online, it's like it was just a bunch of busy work. And I'm starting to feel that with the hybrid classes. They're just giving us busy work, and so they need to like take into account how it's affecting education and like maybe put a little more pressure, I guess, on the professors to make sure people are still learning.
Okay.
And like not just doing crap to take up our time.
Then there would be more testing and then if we
Or
can't learn.
Not necessarily, because like with the hybrid, they make us do everything and then we go to class and it's like, okay, does anyone have any questions? And then if no one has questions, we leave early. That's how mine has been. And that's like not very motivating.
So I think maybe the real issue there is are faculty and staff properly prepared to teach online? Because I think that's, I mean, honestly, that's the bigger issue. And like, I would even say in the faculty staff realm, like that's been the big conversation over the summer is that like, one, you have, and it doesn't happen so much in our type of department that has a lot of educators in it, but in other departments, a lot of people don't learn anything about what it means to teach in 212. And then they were asked within a week to go online. And I mean, I read something about from like an accounting professor here who was like, I have been a professor for 30 years and never taught an online class and had to completely, so I mean like having no clue what to do, right? So if this is even going to have to happen, has the university even properly prepared people to know how to do it well? Do you feel like that may be the issue?
Yeah, I think it's just like, maybe the university is not holding themselves accountable and just pushing it on everyone else and making everyone adjust.
That, and I don't think they take into like the fact of like students either. Like I do not do well online classes. Like I can tell you that. I can't stay focused, and then they shut down campus, so I can't even come to the library to get away from like what's happening at the house. Like my dog, I'd rather play with my dog than like sit there and do my class. And if I can't even come on campus to the library to focus, then like I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe that needs to be split into two of like preparation of faculty to teach well online And then considering changes in student learning, like how, because we don't know the effect until the end. Like that's kind of the sucky, you know what I mean? Like, but being cognizant of how is this going to change student learning? So are we adjusting our expectations? Are we adjusting our objectives? I don't know. Okay.
There's a lot of classes that like aren't very good to be online. Like, I talked to my soils professor quite a bit, and he's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to teach soils online. Like, it's something you have to see and like be in person and touch it and feel it. Like,
It's difficult. I went online last year and he worked very hard throughout it, but like if you don't know somebody in your class, you're screwed.
Okay, community population density.
I just thought about how in certain areas we have a lot more people, and so I mean the university or the government can tell us all day long to social distance, but at some point it's not possible. Or like we've all been in a building probably on campus where it's kind of tight, where the stairways are cramped, and you just can't stay 6 feet away from somebody else. So like in communities like New York as an extreme, it's not really possible. So.
I think that's a good point. Well, and I think that just goes back to, it's really hard to make a blanket recommendation when regions, cities, states are so different when it comes to this. Burlington,
0.0.
0.0. Everyone's gonna move to Burlington. Yeah. Okay, learning environment.
I think kind of like she stated earlier, is like I get very easily distracted, you know, like while I'm at my house or something. And I think overall I just learned better attending class and actually obtaining that information, you know, whereas online sometimes I may just put it off to the last second, and, you know.
That or even testing, because I know our finals are going to be online, and I already have anxiety about that, and that's like months away.
That wasn't our choice.
No, I get that, but it's just like.
Yeah. I think too, what I've heard in the learning environment, like, too, like, and I think about that, like how to go virtual, like how to provide structure. Because I think that's one thing to classroom, because like what I'm hearing a lot too about is like, I like coming to class and I can focus. And a lot of that is just having the structure of, I don't have anything else to distract me when I'm having to sit in this room, right? So I think add structure to that, like.
I know with having a bunch of different online classes, I don't have like a bunch right now, but I would have a lot of difficulty trying to decide which one to work on. I feel like I would jump back and forth and it wouldn't be very productive at all.
It's like the same like as like when going to church. I've had a lot like my grandparents tell me like they're sitting at home watching church on TV, and it's like there's laundry to do, there's this to do at the house. Like it's hard for them to focus on church when you're used to having that place to go to focus.
I loved watching my pajamas though.
Yeah.
Our pastor was super funny. Like one time into it, he's like, you know, I'm considering staying. Like, why not just keep the same dress code when this is That'd be weird.
Another thing is like I'm not like tech savvy either. Like I try to stay off my computer as much as I can. So I mean,
Yeah. That's a big assumption about your generation as a whole, is that y'all like to always be online, and it's not really the case at all.
I also feel like instructors like tell us more information in the classroom, so typing it out. And like I know I have one online class and we made a group message for it because he just didn't send us anything, made a video that was like, oh, turn this in this day, and all of us are like, what assignment, because he hadn't posted it. He's like, I'm used to giving it to you in class, and like he wrote this long email about like how sorry he was. He's like, but this isn't the first time I'm gonna do it. He's like, because I hate this, and I feel like it's gonna be like that for the rest of the semester.
well, like the other day, like he did like one of those like he recorded himself and everything and then just uploaded it, but then told us like we were in Teams and everything. but I didn't see anywhere about us being in teams or like if I was like partnered with somebody, and we had an assignment due that night. So I don't know, literally.
What class is that?
37 or something.
Is it ag policy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in that
We
too.
feel bad.
Well, like, did you like watch the video, like the recording where it like paused and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna let my TA, put y'all in teams. I was like,
And then like the whole time it's just his forehead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like,
Or him eating pound cake?
Exactly.
I don't know.
His
Those
videos
guys have
sound
struggles.
really had no context.
You guys caught me eating yogurt and pound cake and bananas.
I feel like I get distracted and I'm like, literally, I just got off work. I want to go to bed. I don't want to sit here and watch this old man's forehead the entire time.
And he does have a voice that puts you to sleep. All the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, he even talked about that. He was like, yeah, he's like, right before y'all doze off. I'm like, well, I'm already there, bud.
Yeah, he's still
His videos didn't really have like good context. I felt like he just started going off on just random stories.
Like, I emailed him, and that's where I got the long email, like, this isn't gonna be the first time I do it. I'm like,
Lovely.
I do. How did y'all find out who y'all were partnered with?
We got put in a room, like she
Yeah.
like randomly went.
It was, we were there live.
yeah, I was on live and you didn't let me.
Oh, so he didn't account for the fact that people might not be watching it synchronously.
Well, you didn't even let me into the meeting, so.
Oh, yeah. It was supposed to start at 12:30, but I just left my laptop open and I got in there at like 12:55.
It goes back to preparing the professors to work technology.
This guy's really old, so
Yeah.
he don't know what he's doing.
I do think though that like for the learning, I find like if we are gonna do virtual to do Zoom, so I actually have to like log in and be there. Where like one of my classes, he records it, uploads it at nighttime. So like I haven't even watched him and he has 3 videos up. I just don't, like I don't have to clock in, so I'm not gonna be there.
That kind of goes back to that structure part,
Yeah.
like, again, and I feel like that even differs if you're a full-time online student, what we call asynchronous, kind of being able to do it whenever you want, is usually beneficial because there's a reason those students are completely online or in an online program. They usually work full-time, what have you. But I think going from this type of environment to online, probably synchronous.
Because you've already signed up for the class at that time, so
Yeah.
like still show up for that time.
Yeah, he was saying like,
In your pajamas.
he's like, you can't make, or like teachers can't make a mandatory Zoom meeting time for everyone to show up online, but like, I don't understand that rule. If we signed up for these classes and we got our schedule and we were like, okay with it, why couldn't we still just do that schedule?
There are
Doesn't
so
make
many
sense.
things we can't do this semester. We
Really?
don't only do. It's very different. I mean, there's a lot of, the fact that I can't have any points in my class assigned to attendance. And if you do have a class, it's not supposed to be that way. There's a lot of stuff, but it's very different. Instructor safety.
I just like to know that there are like older people or like you're pregnant, like y'all's safety should come first. And like if you're comfortable or not, that's like y'all are older than us, so like your safety comes first. And I know that there's like a couple of professors that are like have gotten sick in the past and they just haven't recovered, so like now they're more susceptible to it than anybody else. And us kids, like, not saying everybody goes out and parties, not saying everybody like doesn't social distance, but like there's gonna be a lot of people going out to Weedstock or like the other weekend at the bar, and like I'm a bartender, so like that's my job, that's my income, so I have to show up, but they're going and visiting other people and bringing that to me, so like if I have it, I'm gonna bring it here, you know what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah.
and then I put you in a predicament.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that. So yeah, just, and maybe letting, what I would add to that is more just like, okay, what is best for the instructor, depending on their situation, but allowing them the choice of what they
Yeah.
want to do. So some universities did do that. Like, instructors had the choice, they didn't have to explain why they wanted it one way or the other, and that's what they're able to do this semester. OSU didn't necessarily do that.
At that point, why can't you just have the students show up and just have the professor on a screen?
Some are doing that.
I
Some
had
have an
that
option of
before
doing
I
that.
started at my JUCO, like we were in like an online class with a professor somewhere else.
Yeah, like they did that, like they were in Ardmore and like I was in Tisch, and so like
Yeah.
they turned on the camera and like he could see us and everything.
Again, it's interesting to kind of look at all this and just, for me, having colleagues at different places, to compare who's thought creatively and who hasn't about ways to do this. I can definitely say OSU approached it in a much more black and white, like, we have two options. And here's what we're gonna, you know, like, there wasn't a whole lot of like, well, we could do this, like, that almost seemed unmanageable versus some other institutions that are like, you can choose to teach hybrid, you can teach in person, you can teach virtual, you can do the, like, where you call yourself in, and, I mean, like, there's some people doing some really crazy things. So it all just depends on the culture of their institution.
Do you think some are more in it for the money than the safety at that
Absolutely.
point?
Yeah.
You think OSU is?
OSU's
I
broke
know.
right now. They are. That's why they're trying to wait for that grant. Because they went bankrupt giving us refunds last semester and refunding housing and like all that stuff. So.
And that's not just a COVID issue, that's a state funding issue. So y'all are all voting age. Just
Please
next
go
time
ahead.
people want to cut know when you vote to cut education funding, you're cutting funding to public institutions as well. It's not just your local school systems either. And so Oklahoma is one of the worst funded states for education.
It's like number 47, isn't it? Like,
Yeah. Like, thank goodness we have Mississippi, right? Like, can usually always depend on when we catch up to you. Student behavior.
So I'm a student athlete, and we talk a lot about, well, obviously we have to behave because otherwise we are not allowed to show up. Like if we go to Weedstock, we have a 1-month suspension from the team, any team activities. So it's very serious, and we talk a lot about football too because there's $88 million that comes from athletics. That's our athletics budget, and $77 million of that is from football. And if students don't behave, we can't have football, and we can't have any other sports. And so I think people don't know that, because I didn't, until my coach said it out loud. But that's just one example of like how your behavior affects everybody right now.
Yeah. You know, what are y'all's thoughts with that on student behavior? Not to dive like too deep into it, but you know, I was listening to Stillwater City Council's meeting that they had Monday night after everything that was in the news over the weekend. And someone made a real good point to say, like, why do we just let a small group reflect the larger group? Like,
Because it was a large group.
yeah.
It was a
So my
small
thought
group.
is like, from y'all's perspective, do you think it is just a couple bad actors, or do you think, like, y'all are the ones that are seeing what's going on? Are people doing what they need to do, or?
As a bartender, they are absolutely not.
Okay.
And I get it, like, everybody wants to go out, like, I'm not gonna complain really, because, like, that's how I make my money. But also in a sense, like, they're putting me in a bad position. And, like, I know y'all are like, well, just don't show up, but, like, I have bills to pay, I have to pay, like, tuition, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I've looked for other jobs, but nobody else is hiring due to the fact that it's, you know, like, not a lot of face-to-face, so nobody, especially on a strip, nobody really listens, so.
So I think like part of the student behavior is not just like what people are doing, but then are they following protocol afterwards? So again, like none of your classes are taking attendance. So if you're doing those things, are you properly isolating afterwards? Like if you're choosing, like are students doing that or are they not? Like to me, that would be a piece of student behavior we'd want to look at.
I know like Woodstock, a lot of my friends aren't going and I'm not going. We're just like, let's not go. But if you look at like Tumbleweeds Insta page, it's a lot of like people over 25 or 30.
A lot of people from out of town.
A lot of people from out of town who are, and I feel like it's gonna make Stillwater and like OSU students look back, because like I know a lot of us who aren't going anymore because we still want to go to class and we want football and we want other activities. And now other people coming are just gonna make us look even worse, make more national news.
The good news is though, is that they'll go back home and then if they're positive, it's their city and the number gets reported.
Always a silver lining.
Huh?
Said always a silver lining.
Yeah. So maybe that's just what we need to be asking for. We need to have a sign at Weed Fest that says, "Thanks, now go home."
Take your germs with you.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how it hasn't been canceled yet.
Because it's not inside city limits,
Yeah.
so they
The
don't have to
county.
put any.
They're right outside.
But literally, one of their acts, Parker McCollum, tested positive for COVID.
But they just got
Yeah.
the Josh Abbott band to fill in for him.
But then
The
they
band's like
Josh
out.
has been in, like,
They're really excellent.
Yeah, they just posted it online, like as I was walking to campus, I saw it. Yeah. And I can tell you what, those people are not gonna like, they're gonna wear their mask past the bouncer, and as soon as they get in there,
The first beer purchase is
yeah.
done.
But I don't know how it's gonna work, like, I work tonight, so I'm gonna see how it works, but like, with the new city mandates,
Mhm.
you have to be able to sit down to take off your mask. But a lot of these bars don't have a lot of seating arrangement. So how are they gonna like,
They're gonna have
and
to
are
invest
they
in
gonna
it.
enforce it?
So,
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not gonna call the cops on our own place. Nobody in the bar that's buying something is gonna call the cops and report us. You know what I'm saying? So like,
I work at the union and on the strip too, and we just built a bunch of tables and bought a bunch of bar stools. So it's gonna change the whole environment. It's gonna be like cocktail waitress type thing. Like people are gonna be walking around serving drinks, and you can't get a drink, like you can't serve somebody a drink if they want, or if they don't have their mask on. And then they can't get up from the table without a mask, so.
and I mean, college kids aren't gonna do that. I can tell you right now.
Well, see, here's the interesting thing. So that ordinance is actually very similar to a lot of other ordinances in other college towns. And again, this kind of goes back, and if y'all think of like change theory and how people adopt things, don't adopt things. There's some college towns that like from the first time everybody was put in quarantine, that's the ordinance they created. And so now in those towns, it's been the norm for 5 months, right? So the students are going back and like, that's what they've been used to. Whereas you have an ordinance like that that's now, and we're all just like, change, right? But everybody, all these towns, you know, it's not like everybody did it at first or they're just now doing it. It's all along that spectrum of what have you, you know, and so I will say, like, because I listened to the city council thing because we just thought it was interesting and wanted to hear what people said. And that was one of the things is like they pretty much copied and it's almost like one city did the ordinance and then cities just kind of said, hey, can I borrow that? And copied it, you know, same wording, same everything, so.
For like Norman and everything, like they were giving out tickets and everything, you know, like if you weren't like an essential, like if you were like driving around and everything and you just got caught, like at first they were like very lenient about it, you know, like people going to the grocery stores and stuff like that, but then they cracked the whip. They even made a Facebook post about it, like.
Yeah, so it just, and that too, like, how people choose to enforce it, it differs everywhere. Because it comes down to talking about power. Are you going to make it a coercive thing, or are you going to say, like, no, this is for your safety, and then, like, over time, just hope more people choose to adopt it? Like that it just becomes a norm, and then people are doing it. So, we'll skip over nothing. I mean, does anybody have anything to say about nothing?
That was him. That was
Yeah,
him.
but we can still include it as an option. I mean, I guess it is technically an option, so what are your thoughts on that? Like, when or how should we go online? We should. Like, that's kind of what that answer is. Mm.
Just keep doing what we're doing and hope for the best. I feel like that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Parents' input, so I appreciated that one. That was a perspective we hadn't heard yet. What do y'all think? You want your parents to tell the university what to do?
I can understand elementary schools, but not college students.
I can understand college a little due to the fact that like some people aren't able to live off campus, so they're gonna have to move home. So like, do they even have room for their college kid to come back? And then do they have internet for their kid to access? Are they gonna have to buy their kid a computer? Because now that they're home and the classes are online, they don't have free access to the library. So, I mean, I can understand the parent input to an extent.
Well, and I think about that too. It's interesting, like we think about our parents. We have a lot of students who are parents, believe it or not. And then you think about, okay, other people who are on campus in some capacity who are parents. Like, I feel like having my son go to pre-K puts me in this like interesting position that like the one thing I am dreading is for either OSU or the public schools to be online, but the other not doing it, and me having no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Well, like a lot
As
of parents are
you
looking
know?
for like babysitters, like college students, but they say you have to be able to do online teaching for my kid. Like, you're gonna have to be the teacher because I can't be there due to the fact that I have to go to work.
I've already got that figured out. That was exactly the conversation I had with our babysitter this summer. She's like, I'll help out if we go virtual. And I was like, oh yeah, you're gonna help out. Yeah, you lie, I'll pay you.
Yeah, but what is that gonna cost them? Because I mean, like,
A lot.
yeah, because like as a babysitter and as a nanny, like I'm gonna charge extra because my normal thing is like take them to the pool, like take them to their like lessons and stuff, not teach them like.
And
I
you think
have
about
my
public
son.
school, that is a huge cost burden off of families. So
Yeah.
just my son not being in daycare anymore has decreased our childcare costs a month from $700 a month to $200. And if we go virtual, or if public schools go virtual, a babysitter costs more than it does for him to be in daycare. And it's, I mean, we're both, me and my husband are like, ugh. Like, we
Yeah,
just-
and then you have to think about the daycares. Like, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna open up and try to make money with this? And if they can handle that capacity?
Yeah, so I think parents input is a part of this, because there's just a lot of complexity to it. Like, I personally feel for our students who are parents, because a lot of them are able to come to school because their kids are in school during the same time. And like, what do you do at that point? I mean, it's just gonna be interesting. So the effect on the local economy.
So I put that because I know like OSU, but I live really close to Agle, which is Northwestern, and a lot of the businesses there, they just now started wearing masks because the college campus had to, because so many people are going there. And one of my favorite restaurants is Taco Village. And during the summer, there's only like 5 people who work there. But during school, there has to be 15 to 20 because all the college students and everything. And she said, right when COVID hit and all of the students had to go, because most of them lived on campus and had to go back, Taco Village lost $20,000. And that's just one small business. And then you think of everything else. Then you think of OSU, that's basically bankrupt. But it's not only like their local economy, the small businesses, it's also students who depend on jobs here. And they can't have those jobs unless we have school and the money coming in from those students. So it's just a lot of not just only students, but local.
That's been another like conversation I've heard, is like, okay, if we go virtual, do students stay in Stillwater or do they go home?
If they're not living on campus, I know like I saw it a lot, like a lot of kids just either opt out of the release, like paid like their debt or whatever, or they just paid the rent and didn't live there. Like there was no point, everything was closed, like.
Like I experienced that this summer. It was like, well, oh, my lease is, like 12 months, so like what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Gonna have to pay it either way, so.
Yeah. Or like they would use it as like a place to escape the parent, like. But I also think knowing that homecoming isn't here, the effects that it's had, and it's going to have on your businesses around here. Like the restaurant that I worked at, they ended up closing for good due to COVID. And knowing what they lost in 4 months, but they were gonna hold on to it for homecoming. But once they announced like no homecoming, they were like, there's no way we can save it. So,
Okay, class consensus.
I feel like if you're sitting in a class and there's not very many people in there and there's a lot of people on Zoom, it's kind of hard to get the full effect of the class because you don't get everyone's opinions and thoughts within also. And so it's difficult on the teacher side, I'm assuming, because trying to cater to the people you have in front of you and the online part would not be very easy.
We're essentially being asked to teach a class as if it's 3 different classes, so it's triple the amount of work. It's tough. Attendance after the first week.
Okay, I was seeing it from like the instructor's like the teacher, because my dad's an ag teacher right now and he's going through that, and I feel like it just needs to be one way or the other, because they were telling him, oh, we're gonna go back, not do online. Well, now he's having to learn online, like the online component, because it's like, well, oh, are we gonna go like online and not in person? So I guess I'm seeing it as like, it just needs to be one way or the other.
Just make the call.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing, like, I like the Oklahoma Education's recommendations for public schools, and Stillwater adopted it, but also the negative. So like what they've done is essentially, they have these levels, and based on the weekly positivity rate of the city or the school district, you're either okay to still be in person, or if it goes to this particular level, you go online. But like the good part of that is you can come out of it, right? As a parent, every Friday, I'm going to be getting an email letting me know what my kid's doing next week. One week it might be online, next week it might be in person. Good Lord. In fact, I'm just like, oh, my brain can't handle this. Like, I'm just hoping we're all fine. It's all going to be fine. No show or 0 attendance.
Yeah, if, going off that, if you have 0 kids to show up, then you should probably go online.
Okay. Has that happened to any classes? Have y'all heard of that at all? I don't know. The cost for the university.
Oh, that was me. But what I said earlier, like it cost OSU a bunch of money to have to send everyone home, and then students got mad that they were paying for stuff they weren't getting.
Yeah.
So because of the poor management of OSU's money, I don't know who's in control of that, but they had to come up with money that they've already spent to refund back to students. And now they're like barely, I mean, they're still probably fine, but like now they're like, just like taking it day by day. And it's like, and they still had to pay people over the summer because not everyone could go home. So they had to stay in res halls, and then they had to pay CMs to stay and make sure they weren't doing like whatever they do.
Yeah, that's something too I talked with someone about, is like, you know, what is that cost benefit analysis of being on campus? Like, it's nice, and sure, it does pull more money, but the more students you have back, that's the more services you're having to provide. I mean, think of the number of the people that Nicole then employed, right? And what all they're having to do even, and what's interesting is to do all this stuff for COVID, it's actually increasing costs. And so if we're in a dire economic situation at the university, wouldn't it make more economic sense to go virtual? Because you'd actually save, I don't know. That's
I
an
think their
interesting
thing is like,
conversation.
there's just a bunch of empty buildings on campus, and it's like, why go back? I think a lot of people realize that over the summer. Like even people working, everyone found out you can do pretty much everything online, and now people are like, why would we go back?
Businesses have shifted. So my husband's business, like everybody went remote because they couldn't work in the office, and so they had to buy, laptops for people to take home. Like they're paying part of people's like internet bill, stuff like that. And so now, as they've started thinking about like, well, do we go back to the office? They're like, we may have like had all this upfront cost, but that was actually cheaper than us paying the rent, the utilities, all this stuff for these office buildings. It's gonna actually save us money. Like, there's a lot of positions that they're not making them go back to the office. Like, they've gotten rid of leases of like 5 or 6 different buildings. Interesting. And there's a lot of businesses doing that.
And that's hurting those like business owners though that that own those buildings. So then it's never gonna be good for everybody.
It's not. And so then you wonder, like, is there gonna be a shift in how those buildings are used? You know, there's gonna be a lot of change. What about the cost for the student?
I guess my perspective is like having to move back home, which is what I was kind of thinking with the parents' input. Because like, I'm a CM on campus, so I can't have a job, like I can, but it's like weird hours. So I can't have like a full-time job and be a CM, and then I have to move home if they don't let me stay on campus. And my parents, like, my dad's in the oil field, so he lost his job. There's income disruptions. And I don't make enough to pay for college. So my parents have to come up with that money now that he doesn't have a job. And so if I go home, he still doesn't have a job. So do I go to work or do I not? And so instead of like getting my meal plan and housing paid for, now I'm gonna have to come up with like money for groceries and like a ton of other crap.
And not only that, kind of like, so like whenever we went online, I didn't have very good internet at my house, but then like you have to have good internet to do Zoom and like all that. So like I had to put my cost into the internet, and like some students really don't have laptops.
Right.
So like they're gonna have to go buy a laptop because public libraries closed, this library closed, so.
Yeah. That ties into the next one of like student SES. I mean, absolutely. I want to kind of quickly try to go through the rest of these. High-risk population, who they are. What was the thought behind that?
I just thought, you know, like, for me, like, I have some family members, like my little cousin, you know, she was born with, you know, disabilities and everything, like, she's got stuff wrong with her heart, she has solitary kidney, and for me to go back home to my family, and then for her to get that, I mean, that's gonna kill her, I mean.
Yeah.
Or like, for instance, you're pregnant and everything, or like my grandparents, you know, they're older, they're high risk.
So maybe assessing what that looks like with the people involved and what's going on, like what's that percentage? Yeah. I think student positivity rate's pretty straightforward, you know, like what's that looking like? And supposedly we're supposed to find that out every week, right? Is that what I got from one meeting?
I didn't get that email.
I don't know. OSU's supposed to be like being transparent about that or something. We've already kind of talked about Sydney ordinances, so how is that going to influence what we're able to do, not do? So I think the same thing, local school district, what they're doing. I want to talk about the plan of action prior.
So, I've never been like, I guess, but my mom is. We call her Marcy stands with a list. And like every single day, she writes down what we've done and like her planner is full. And when she's stressed out, I get stressed out. So, I lived in my sorority house and I did go on spring break, whatever. And I'm a terrible person. And so we got back on that Friday. I went back to Burlington and I got a text that was just like, hey, if you live less than 3 hours from campus, you have to come get your stuff from the sorority house and move. And that's all they said. That's all that, like, university called all the Greek houses and was like, everyone has to move out by this date. Like, no holds bar, like, and if they don't, they get a fine. So Mom and I did that, and then I didn't have Wi-Fi at my house, and so I went to the town hall, and people were coming in and out of the office, and I just felt really jumbled, like I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't like my mom coming in and asking me every day like what I was doing, because I had no idea. And then, you know, coming back when it's
Where are
like,
you going? Are you there?
and then when it's like hybrid and like trying to figure out, and teachers, I mean, you're really awesome at it, but you're the only teacher who's like actually like told us what we're doing. So thank you.
Yeah.
But a lot of my other teachers are just like, oh, we might be doing this day, we might be doing this. I'm like, I need a definite. I just need something definite through all of this, and it just hasn't been there. So I'd really like a plan of action, especially for like the kids in the dorms, that they don't know if they can stay there or have to go home, or the Greek houses if they have to move, like.
Like, they have had
Jobs.
5 months to figure this out. That's my thing, is like, we have had 5 months.
Yeah, that
And if
was
we've
the
just
last
pretended like everything's rosy, then you haven't been doing your job for 5 months.
That was me
Almost
last
30
semester. I
minutes
had to
to
move
move
out for an hour and a half.
Really?
I had to get all my stuff. I had like 4 people. We were throwing stuff in suitcases.
Yeah.
Still don't know half my stuff.
And that is why you live off campus.
Murray, like, you had to like schedule a date, but there could only be 9 people, like within like your dorm housing and everything, like they have 3 buildings and all that. But you had 30 minutes and there couldn't be more than 9 people in there. So like for me, I have a crap ton of stuff. I mean, I was just like throwing it down the stairs.
Well, I felt that way though, like with Stillwater City Schools, like, school started today. We didn't get an email until Sunday about how Meet the Teacher was going. Like, I did not know my child's teacher until Tuesday. Didn't know who the teacher was, didn't know if they were doing Meet the Teacher or how. Got an email Sunday that said, you're gonna get another email on Tuesday that'll tell you. So I get the email Tuesday at 1 o'clock that says, we're doing virtual Meet the Teacher at 4:30 today. Like, and I'm like, what have y'all been doing since March?
But not only that, like, how is the parent, like, what if you're working at 4:30? Then what happened?
Chad had to go get Wilk and bring Wilk up here so that by the time we got out of class, he could meet me at the office, and we did meet the teacher in my office because I wouldn't have made it home or.
But I'm saying, like, most jobs last until 5 or 6.
Tell me about it.
So what are they, like,
So
you aren't gonna meet your
And
kids,
then I
like,
was like, if the kid's going back to school, it's probably because the parents are working.
yeah.
That's a whole nother. Increased positivity rate school-wide, and then quarantine space for students. So,
I don't know, I just kind of, it was just a random thought with for no particular reason other than that. I know that students that live on campus, if they get tested positive, they have to go somewhere else. And if you run out of space for them to go, then everyone in their dorm, like even when I lived in Bennett Hall my freshman year, if one person got a cold in that dorm, the whole dorm was sick. And so I just can't imagine.
So my question is, I know you guys had to have a test to move in, but like, was it you had to have a test before and it had to be negative, or can you move in without having the results?
Okay, I know the answer to this because I
So
was
do
in
I.
the middle of it.
Okay,
So I was a CM, so we came 2 weeks prior.
okay.
They did not test us when we got to campus. We were together in small rooms for 2 weeks. Then they tested us the day before, like the day before the residents got on campus. We didn't get our results till we moved in like half the residents.
So
And then
what
the
you're
residents
saying-
don't have their results.
It was
That's
a
what I'm
futile
saying,
effort.
like, yeah, like, y'all could be positive, like.
Yeah.
But like for the bed thing, I can't say what dorm, but there's a dorm on campus and 2 floors,
Are positive?
no,
Oh.
2 floors are like sectioned off for residents that get sick. But that's only for people that live in like communities or like with shared spaces. So like the deluxe suites or like the apartments where they have separate bathrooms. And they make their roommates isolate, but like since they have their own place, they stay. Like traditional move-in. And then they have like 300 hotel rooms booked. It's like there's a bunch of beds available, but for the most part, they just tell you to isolate if you're around someone in your room. But then it sucks.
When I would add to that, like, what's the local hospital space too?
I think it's only 8 beds. Aren't we only 8 beds for ventilators or something like that?
All right, so we have all these ideas. We've heard everybody's reasoning behind it. We've had a chance to kind of banter a little bit about it. I want you to look at them, and I want you to decide what you think the top 3 like answers are. Like, okay, so that question of how or when should learning go virtual or instruction go virtual? And to do that, are y'all okay getting up and touching a piece of chocolate or a piece of
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Can I
gloves.
cough on it?
Huh?
So do you have gloves?
I don't have gloves, I have Lysol wipes.
That's okay.
But, you know, kind of keep yourself spaced. But I want you to come up and vote by just putting a check mark beside the number. So like either on the number, beside it, of what your top 3 are. So we can kind of get a picture of what's the vote for the whole class. So once you know your 3, let's kind of do that quickly.
Shocks for you guys.
I feel like I should give out like a supplies list to my classes now, like we do. I'm just going like, please bring a marker, a piece of chalk. Everybody has their own cubby.
But I still wouldn't have it.
Yeah, he would forget all this stuff still. At least stick a pin in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you know your 3, just get up and vote.
I know at least 2.
Okay. And if you just have 2, that's fine. Or if you're like, I really only care about 1. I think if we can do 2 or 3 people at the other time, then it'd be okay. Y'all feel comfortable with that?
Yeah. I'm just
We
kidding.
need some
With
Lysol.
all
Like
the
the
hand
football
sanitizer.
player.
I have some though, if you want.
No, we're joking.
Okay.
That's the spray they make people run through.
Yeah, like the
Like-
football players, like they get to walk underneath,
They're
like
breathing on each other.
sanitizing, and I'm like, cool.
They're like sweating all over each other and like spitting.
Yeah.
What does that do?
I want to make a spread.
It's a facade, yeah, it is.
Well, that's what, like, every time that there's something on the news about like, this business has a positive person, so they closed down for 2 weeks and are disinfecting, we're like, okay, 3 days. You just need to be closed 3 days. It dies. Like, but that's just to make the public feel better. But it's kind of a silly excuse. And I mean, my husband's in healthcare, so he's like pretty on top of all this stuff that even he's like, done.
Yeah,
Like,
even, yeah, because like, so the restaurant, the kid didn't even work for 2 weeks, got positive, and we still had to close down.
And it's like, okay, close for 3 days, like let everything die out. And then you're fine. Like,
Or when you have to wear a mask to a restaurant, or like the student union, and then take it off.
Hey,
There's
yeah,
someone right next to you.
explain that.
I can't.
Please.
Doesn't make sense.
Walmart said that they were gonna be taking like all these safety precautions, but literally that never happened.
Or like you sit down, eat, get up, put a mask on, and go to the bathroom, come back down, sit, and eat. Like,
Also, like, where do you put your mask? I usually put it on my thigh, but I'm like, what is my thigh touch today?
things you've never had to think about before.
Or like some, like people put it on the booth, and I'm like,
Oh, I got my thighs. I should've-
I have this like little bag in my purse, and I'm like, when my mask has been in that bag multiple times. What is my mask breathing?
that, and are they wearing clean masks? Because your mask is supposed to be washed once a day.
Yeah. I bought, like, for going to school, I have 7 masks, he needs 5, and I put on the other side, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And just like, get home, put it in the washer, and then he's got another one for tomorrow. Like,
But like, they only gave us students, like, Penny, what if a student can't afford, like, a mask? And they only gave us one, you know what I'm saying?
I didn't even get one.
Are they're making those like kindergarten and pre-K to wear masks? How do they keep those on for the kids? And how do they-
I think it has to do with, again, like, it hasn't become a norm or not, so like, my son, like, we make, like, we when we started feeling comfortable going places, we went, and we said, you're going, like, you've gotta wear a mask. And he just doesn't even think anything of it now. And like this morning, we got in the car to go, and we said, now you may have to wear your mask at school. He put it on in the backseat of the car, and we were like, you don't have to, and Chad went to go pull it off, and he's like, no, like, and when we flew to Florida, he was fine on the airplane, like, I think it just hasn't become a norm to them yet or not. I mean, and like, at least for him, he's never gone to school before, he doesn't know any different. I mean, I know it's harder for older kids, obviously, but for him, all he knows, maybe this is what kids have always known.
Now, do they have to wear it at recess, or are they allowed to?
Not
do it
outside, they can
Okay.
take it off outside.
And how do you keep masks on?
You got it?
Scott?
Okay.
The top three?
You don't.
Yeah, so why don't you erase all the others so we don't have to, or at least some that, erase the ones that got no votes. All right, so it looks like our top ones that seem to have the most consensus are what's the effect it's having on education process and learning, instructor safety, and student behavior, what's happening with that. Are there any others that like got votes that maybe you want to argue for, say like, maybe that is a little bit more important than what we voted for? Do y'all feel good with the top three y'all chose as a class? Because I even think like effects on education, some people voted for number 6, learning environment. You could kind of even take some of the arguments that were made for that and fit that under there.
I think student cost is another big one.
Okay, student costs. Anybody else's thoughts on it?
I don't like spending money, so I think it's important.
Somebody else?
We can put it in student behavior, because like how you spend your money, if you want to be in class and you're gonna wear a mask and like not do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no way of telling how people act outside of class. So it's really hard to keep track of.
Especially once you're off campus.
I think people are gonna do what they want regardless of anybody else's feelings or how they think it's gonna affect others, so.
Not only that, like we talked this morning, like the email that we got the other day about saying that we were a disappointment. Like now kids are gonna be like, watch what we do this weekend. You know, like.
I went to a birthday party the other night and everyone wore masks, and I was like genuinely shocked when I went in, because I was like, I kind of know this person. They lessened it, like less than 25 people, spaced out, wore masks, and I'm like, is this going to become the norm? But I was really proud because like we were all college students.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if more people like acted this way.
Well, and I think maybe where that could be connected with student behavior is like student behavior and impacts, maybe, because I mean, we talked about like costs, but I think more of it is just like, what's the impact on students going to be? If we stay virtual or not, right? Like, are they gonna have to go home and find a job now? Are athletes not gonna be able to play? What have you? So, you know, if we were, as a class, making the recommendation to the local school district or OSU on how to make this decision, based off of what we just did, these would kind of be what we would base our proposal, our recommendations around. What we just did is a process called nominal group technique. So this is a good discussion facilitation method to use when maybe you're talking about something that could be a really heated topic, controversial. Do you think that this could be a controversial topic? Yeah. What would discussion have been like if we didn't do it in the way we just did? If I had just asked the question to the class and said, let's talk about this today.
Not everyone would have spoken up.
Not everyone would have spoken up. What else?
It wouldn't have gone so smoothly.
It wouldn't have gone so smoothly.
We wouldn't have been able to hear the ideas as clearly, I feel like.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have heard the ideas as clearly.
We
You know,
would have been on like one topic and we would have talked about that for a long time instead of having several to go through.
yeah.
I think people would have been a lot more defensive if you, without like just saying the idea first and then waiting and then discussing it.
Uh-huh. absolutely. You know, one thing that happens too is we have this like phenomenon that happens called groupthink. So whoever's loudest in the room, it kind of tends to polarize conversations. And if you're like, I really don't identify with either, you don't say anything, and then you kind of start, so it's like hearing, you're just surrounded by people who all think the same thing, and that's all that's getting said. I mean, think about the fact, probably, who brought up the parents? You brought up parents. I mean, that may have never even gotten mentioned, right? And that was a whole different perspective and part of the conversation that hadn't been brought up yet. So we kind of practice that today for us to get used to how it is. It's going to be a technique that we use quite a bit in this class. We're not going to use it every day, but definitely when we get to the point where it's like, all right, we learned about these things. What do we think we should do? This is going to be how we facilitate that conversation. And what I like so much about it is everyone gets the chance to say everything. And it's not just that you get to say one thing. Because do we always, are our opinions on things always in one camp or the other? Not usually. They're more nuanced than that. And so you're also getting the opportunity to show the nuances of your opinions. And then you see them, you talk about them, you hear the reasons behind it, you get to ask for clarification, and then we get to make a decision. We get to move forward from there. And so, you know, again, I think it's good for us to practice going through what that looks like so that, you know, we'll be doing it again sometime next week. So you'll be familiar with it. But two, this is a really good toolkit for y'all, a tool to have yourselves. Whenever you're having these types of conversations with groups, like this is one of those easy kind of like instructional methods that you can pull out and know how to facilitate sometimes these hard conversations. It works really well. I know we're past time, sorry y'all. Just some reminders for next week. For Tuesday, please have read through page 30 of Food Radicals. And really all that is you're reading like a 3-page intro, and then you're reading about every person that's going to be talked about in the book throughout. If you want to read ahead, read through page, I think 56, because that's kind of all that we're covering next week. All right? See y'all Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Be healthy.
Make smart decisions.
Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Isolate if you need to.